Okay, so we're talking about the question of how do you deal with an older child, a grown-up child, an adult child moving back into the house. They grew up, they moved away, and lo and behold, they're back. Now they're back at home. You got a 20-something living in your home. How do you manage this?
You know, I hear a lot when I hear people talking about this.
Uh-huh.
There's kind of two perspectives, and I think they're both wrong.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
two perspectives I hear from my friends
Yeah.
is either, oh, of course my children are living at home and they're not really able I want them to stay at home until they get married and
Mm,
then I don't think they can handle living on their own and
There's the problem.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's a protective, hovering helicopter
Mm,
parent thing where I'm going to keep them here until they're at whatever age I think they're actually adults, which evidently some people are thinking is more like 30 than 18.
that's a tipping point because you know that thing. I want to take care of it. I want to make them happy. I want to serve my child. That okay? That's up to a point, but then you say because they're not competent adults. That
Ooh,
goes over the
yeah,
edge, and I think that's
yeah.
that's the
And
problem with that.
the other perspective
Yeah.
I hear from my friends
Right.
is, well, if you're going to live here,
Yeah.
then look, you're going to pay rent and it's going to be this amount every month, and
Mm.
you're going to pay for this part of the utilities, and you're going to pay all of your car stuff. And if you don't have the gas to go somewhere, well, too bad.
Okay. And
And
that's a question I've heard people ask that question. Do you charge rent?
and that whole
I
charge thing kind of bothers me now
It bothers me too.
because I think ideally you don't go either of those directions. Either the direction of my child is incompetent to live on their own.
Right.
First of all, they're
Yeah.
not a child. They're your
No. No.
child, but they're not a
No.
child.
No. Right.
Or the other direction that my child is not going to sponge on me.
Well, you know,
You
I think
know,
I think well, right there. I mean, just the way that that's even phrased is creating an adversarial relationship.
it is, and that bleeds over because you know
Yeah.
what? If
hmm
I'm paying rent to somebody, I expect them to do certain
I'm
things,
I'm
take
ex-
care of me.
I'm expecting certain services to be rendered by my landlord.
Yeah,
And
and
so you get into this tit for tat kind of thing, like, well, I'm going to withhold some of the rent because you didn't change the light bulbs in the bathroom when I requested it, and that's not good family relationship.
no, because you got to remember
Mm-mm.
this is your family if they're living in your house.
Yeah.
And so
hmm
when it's your child, and I'm not talking about having your cousin or whatever living with you. I'm talking about
And,
your child.
and
But
I'm not talking about, hey, we've got a rental property and we're going to let you live in it,
right,
but we're talking about moving back into the home, right there
right.
where you're looking at each other all day long, kind of thing.
I
Yeah.
think that we should be
Yeah.
working toward having the kind of
hmm
relationship that everyone wants to serve each other.
Yeah.
That the person moving in is saying, I know this is going to be some extra expense. How can I help? And the
Well,
person at home
yeah.
you know, is saying, well,
Mhm.
I'm glad to help, but yeah, it would be a blessing if you helped.
Yeah, I mean, because you don't charge your teenagers rent. I mean, you don't charge your teenagers for part of
Yeah,
the utilities. I mean, we're not talking about. I mean, maybe your teenagers do things like they pay for their own clothing or something. That's part of the growing up process. But things like, well, part of the, you pay part of the water bill. They're not. You're not sharing an apartment like that. That's not the kind of
you're
relationship you
not
want.
roommates, you're family.
Um,
Now,
that's
so
so.
I remember when one of ours moved home
hmm
for a while,
hmm
and he specifically moved home in order to help us. We were having a tough time
Yeah.
getting our ministry started, and
hmm
he said, I could move into an apartment, but I could if I moved in with you guys, I could help you out with that money I would spend on an apartment.
And that was a big help. And
It
that
was a huge
and that
help.
really that was a ministry of sorts of his own.
Yes,
That he came in, that he gave up the independence really, and
right.
the privacy that he would have had in his own apartment kind of arrangement. So,
Yeah,
I think one of the things which I have, I felt it in when we've been in a temporary situation, and I think our young people have felt it coming in. You're kind of a two-headed animal in that
yeah,
situation because you're the eaglet returning to the nest, but at the same time, you're kind of a guest.
Yeah,
And by that, I don't mean, you know, that because you're a family member, you expect you're going to pick up some of the household chores or maybe
right.
sharing some expenses or something because you're family. But as a guest, you respect the family rules as if they were outside rules.
Now there's the thing, is
Uh-huh.
respect on both sides.
Right.
And I want to say a little bit more about the financial before we go to
Okay,
that,
sure,
if you
sure,
don't
sure.
mind.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
So, I remember though that
Yeah,
he had a month or two that he was having a tough time financially.
yeah.
I said, look, don't worry about it. And he kind of forgot to restart it.
Uh,
And I found myself getting a little resentful. And
mm,
I had to just stop and say, you know, we're really struggling this month.
yeah.
And if you're able to help, I'd be grateful.
Hmm.
Handling it, he said, oh, I'm so sorry.
Hmm.
And he immediately helped. And I think handling it that way
Hmm.
as just, when you love somebody and you need something, you just go say something.
Yeah.
You
You say it
know,
gently, you say it with love, but you do say
you
something.
you you don't let it fester.
You don't let resentment
And
build up. The scriptures tell us that you are not to hold resentment. You're not to hold a grudge against your neighbor. And what neighbor is closer than your own child?
yeah,
So,
and so I
yeah,
think you just need to have honest conversations,
yeah.
starting at the beginning and several times while it happens, and say,
Hmm.
um, I want to bless you.
Yeah,
If you're able to help, that would be a huge blessing to me.
yeah, yeah,
And if you can't have that conversation,
yeah.
maybe you don't need to be living together.
Well, yeah, and you
You
might get
know?
to that point. I think a certain things that you have to deal with are, an adult is expected to have some independence and some freedom to come and go. As a family member, it's just polite to say, "Hey, I'm going to the store, or I'm going to be going to the movie with some friends or something. I'll be in late."
Well, I remember
Just, hmm,
explaining it that way to one of our kids.
yeah,
And I said,
hmm,
I would not just go get my car keys and walk out of the house and get in the car and go somewhere.
well, I don't do that with you.
No,
I don't just disappear.
I don't have to ask permission to go somewhere,
No.
but it's rude because maybe you need something from out I can pick up.
Hmm.
Or maybe you were planning to go somewhere in that
Yeah,
vehicle,
yeah, right, right.
and I don't want to leave y'all wondering if I'm going to be home for supper. And so it's courteous to tell the people that you're living with
Hmm.
where you're going, what you're doing when you're coming back.
Yeah.
And I said, this isn't a matter of us. I told him, I said, you don't have to ask my permission to go somewhere,
Mhm.
but if you can tell me where you're going just as a matter of courtesy, this will all go a lot more smoothly.
Yeah, and so that's a good thing to remember. That's a good thing to keep in mind. Not You're not asking mother, may I go do this? You're saying, I'm planning to do this. Does that present a problem with anybody? Or
Yeah.
does that suggest an opportunity somewhere? So
So what
so
about
that's
house
good.
rules? Because one of the things that my friend asked how
Mhm.
is, well, how do I handle house rules?
Well, that's where I think that the young adult needs to recognize that um, mom and dad are still responsible for those younger kids that are still at home, and
Yes.
you are kind of yes, your family, but you're coming in as a guest, and you shouldn't treat their house as if it was a hotel room or an
Right.
apartment or something. So if mom and dad have certain, rules and expectations about hours or noise or what sort of entertainment is allowed, or are you maybe while you're off in college, you decide to take up smoking a pipe because it looks intellectual, and mom and dad just like can't stand that. Well, okay, you know
Yeah,
you need to have those conversations, but ultimately, I think the young adult needs to say, "Hey, look, I'm going to respect your rules because you got to manage the whole thing, and I'm going to be gone eventually. This is not I'm not permanent here."
well, I remember
Hmm.
one of our sons who was home for some reason for a
Yeah.
time,
Hmm.
and he was reading some books that were really fine for him, but
Hmm.
his I knew they were things that his then maybe 11 or 12-year-old brother
Hmm.
would be very interested in that I didn't think would be good for him to read.
Grown-up situations a little bit advanced for his
Yeah,
age.
nothing
Yeah.
nothing
Nothing
defiling,
prurient, but just,
but just I didn't think it was gonna. And I said, look,
yeah. Hmm.
you're an adult. You can
Right.
read this stuff, but would you do me a favor and not leave it out so he'll pick it up? And he said, "Oh, yeah, sure. I didn't think about that, but you're right. This wouldn't be good for him at his age."
Right. Yeah.
And so, yeah, you just have the conversation, talk about it.
Hmm.
The young adults need to realize this is your parents' home,
Yeah.
and they need to have the freedom to raise your younger siblings just like they had the freedom to raise you.
Right.
And the adults need to realize this isn't a child, this is an adult that you really need to give them the independence to make decisions on their own.
Yeah. And you don't,
Um,
if they're 20 something living in your home, that doesn't mean that you get to rule on all of their friendships or their
yeah.
activities, but it's just
Now,
simple. Mhm.
Hal, we're almost out of time. We need to
Yeah.
talk about the tough thing.
The really tough
What
one.
do you do when this has to end? I have a friend
Hmm.
whose adult son was living with them,
Hmm.
and she found out that they were bringing illegal drugs into the house,
Yeah.
and she had to get him out of the house.
Or we've had friends too who had young people who didn't see home as a safety net. They saw it as a hammock.
Yeah.
And they thought, hey, well, I'll just live here until my dream job
Yeah. Well,
comes
what is
calling on
this?
me.
Okay, so I saw the statistic you got. Let me look it
Yeah.
up.
Uh-huh.
The Census Bureau found that 25% of young adults at home
Hmm.
are neither going to school nor working. That's not okay.
Well, yeah, yeah. If they're not going to school, they're not working. The question that I would have as dad in the household is, are you looking for a job?
Yeah.
Can I help you find that?
Can I help you
Because
start a business?
because
Yeah.
that's
Do you want to
reality.
work in our business? Yeah.
Yeah, you may not. I mean, your job right now may be finding the job, and okay,
Yeah.
that's legitimate. But if it's just a matter of, hey,
Hey, somebody else is paying the bills.
yeah,
That's
that's
not
cool,
okay.
that's not okay. And so sometimes okay,
And
there,
so I want to say this. So my
go ahead.
friend asked, I need to kick my
Hmm.
son out. What do I do? And I said, whoa, okay, wrong language.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
because you don't
right,
kick out your family.
hmm,
What you do is you go and you say, this can't continue
right,
because you brought something in the house that is dangerous to our family.
yeah,
It's dangerous to the other children.
hmm,
Children away because this is in our house.
right.
And so,
That's reality.
you're going to need to move
So
out. I'd like to help you find an apartment.
yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
says, I love you. I care about you.
right.
I am trying to take care of you too. But
Hmm.
my priority is protecting these younger children. But I'm not going to say, pack your bags, you're on the street tonight. I'm going
Right.
to say, let's find you a place to go. Even if
Yeah.
even if it's so bad, I have to go rent you a hotel room tonight while we look for you an apartment.
Yeah, and if it's one of those, transitioning out kind of things, it might be appropriate to say, look, if you want to do this kind of stuff on your own, that's on your head, but don't bring it in the house here.
Yeah.
And I'll help you find a place so you can go do whatever it is you're going to do, but not endanger your family in the
Because they
process.
know you disagree with it. They know where you stand. They know what you
That that
believe.
should not be a surprise to anybody.
Yeah, and
So,
you ought to protect your younger children.
right,
But you can do that in a way that doesn't destroy the relationship because that's still your child and you want them to come back. You want them to come
right,
back to the Lord
right.
and back into relationship with the family.
Well, okay, what a great example in the story of the prodigal son,
Yeah.
that the boy says, Dad, give me my half of the inheritance. I'm going to run out and wine, women, and song, and I'm going to live it up. And Dad reluctantly does this and lets his son go. Well, he didn't, when the son came back knocking on the door and he smells like a pig, Dad didn't slam the door on his finger and said, I don't have but one son now. I mean, he didn't. Dad didn't shut him out.
I've heard people advise that stuff though, Hal.
I've heard that too, and you know what? Just what you said. Even if you have to separate for a time, you want to leave a door open. You
Yeah.
want to leave a relationship in place so that you can continue to have an influence in their life. You don't want to
Amen.
lose your child. You want to say, hey, I, you're living a life that you've got to live on your own, but I'm here to advise and to help when I can.
Because the goal is to have that
Mhm.
kind of relationship with your kids that will lead them to have a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Well, it's just like discipline within the church. You read that
Yeah.
discipline within the church, and
It's
the
to
current
restore.
it's to restore the relationship. It's not to cut them off and consign them over to perdition.
Yeah.
So
And hopefully you'll never face that. We never have.
no, we haven't. We haven't.
It's been a very good thing when
Mhm.
we've had our kids here for different times.
Yeah.
And I hope it'll be a blessing to you too. I think I think that it's a total matter of Christian liberty. you
Yeah,
know,
I don't think it's a morality.
multi-generation living together or not,
Yeah,
but it's a matter of Christian duty that we behave toward one another like brothers and sisters in Christ.
well put. Well, look, and I hope that's helpful for everybody. We do appreciate you joining us.
Yes.
We hope that you'll join us again as we try to take biblical principles into the 21st century family. So until next time, I'm Hal,
And I'm Melanie.
and we'll talk to you later.